and then we'll open up the questions for those gathered here in Randall Hall. After a few minutes, we'll take questions for those on the teleconference, and then we'll come back here with one more round of questions from Randall Hall. So at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the head coach of the Army Black Knights, Jeff Monken.
Thanks for being here today, guys. Glad to have the opportunity to have that spring game like we did on Saturday. I thought that was a good evaluation for our staff, just in terms of assignments and execution and just being able to measure how far we'd come from the first day. And I think we made some steady improvements throughout spring, and that was apparent. That was apparent as we were going through each week. Each time we had a chance to scrimmage on it would have been the second end of the second week. We had a Saturday scrimmage, and then last Saturday after the third week, and then this past Saturday on the spring game. And each week I think we got better. We certainly got a long way to go, and I'm glad we don't have to play this week. I don't think that we're prepared yet in terms of the things we have in schematically. There's a lot more that we want to install, and I don't think we're where we needed to be in terms of fundamentals and execution. But we've come a long way, and I think our guys really put a great effort into the spring. They worked hard. They tried to do all the things we were asking of them, and if they'll continue to put forth that kind of effort, I think we'll have a chance to improve when we get back here in August and get ready for the opening game. So I'm looking forward to that. It can't get here soon enough. We got a lot of work to do over the summer and getting these guys more prepared physically, and I'm anxious to see that development. But looking forward to the opportunity of getting back out there and working with those guys again and improving and working on the things that we didn't quite master this spring, and get ready to see what we got for the season. And with that, we'll go with the questions.
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, Coach. Joe from WKDT. Were there any eye-openers? Were there any guys that came on that field and you said, whoa, I might have something here?
Oh, I think there were a lot of guys that impressed us this spring that I thought did a good job. And just in particular, the positions at B-back, I was really pleased with the competition between Dixon and Jacinta. I thought both of those guys did a nice job. That's a position where we rely on those guys to carry the ball a lot in our offense, and it usually takes more than one guy at that position. Those guys get tackled a lot, get hit a lot, and it'd be nice to have two guys there. I think they're two of our best football players. The secondary, there's some guys that played back there: Bacon, Pierce, Carnegie, Jenkins. Carnegie didn't get a lot of time this spring. He's been nursing an injury, but if we can get him back to full health, I think all four of those guys provide some that's an area where there's always a concern. There's some awfully gifted athletes out there in college football that play the skill positions on offense, and to not be able to match up with those guys is a concern. And I think all four of those guys give us a chance to at least do that. And I was pleased with how they improved. I don't think our depth is as good as it needs to be there. That's a little bit of a concern. But I was pleased with those four guys. I was excited to see the competition between the two quarterbacks with Shure and Santiago. I think both of those guys will be in the mix in the fall. I said a few times this spring that I wasn't sure. I was excited that neither one of them had separated from the other, but hopefully they're both going to improve, and I think they both made some subtle improvements in things that they needed to over the course of the spring. We had some center quarterback exchange problems, and even in the spring game we did. Mm-hmm. That had a lot more to do with the fact that we had moved two guys to center that hadn't played center, Hugenberg being one who had never snapped a ball in his career. So that got better, but we're going to have to fix that up and clean that up. But I'm happy with the job both of those guys did. Both did a good job of leadership. Richard Glover, the nose guard, just tough, quick. Really pleased with his intensity, his effort. Drummond, Mike Ugeni, those guys that make up that first group on the defensive line. I thought those guys improved and it really came along this spring. And we got some work to do. They know it, and we're going to work to get better as we go through the summer. Physically, get bigger. It's hard to go through a season playing the people we'll play, remaining undersized. We've got to try to get bigger both on the offense and defensive line. Skill positions in general on offense. There were some guys that I think really came around this spring and made some improvements. I was excited to see Tony Giovanelli and the plays he made on Saturday. He really improved from the first week. He's a competitor. Kelvin White moved from quarterback to wide receiver, and in a couple of days he was already playing with the first team. He takes so much pride in knowing the offense and knowing everybody else's job. It made an easy transition for him. He takes a lot of pride in doing whatever he's doing well, and I'm excited about that move. I thought Xavier Moss did some nice things as we went through spring. He really struggled at the beginning of spring when the ball was in the air, going up and making some plays. He did that as we went through the spring. So, there were some guys that stood out. I probably missed some names, but those are some guys in some positions where I felt like there were some good things that happened.
Okay, and you feel that your team overall understands your system, is working to integrate it, and you think that they've got the baseline down?
I don't know that they understand the system yet. A lot of them know their position.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them know their position right now, their job right now. But in terms of how that fits into the whole grand scheme, I don't know that we've got a great handle on that yet. Whether it's offense, defense, or special teams. I watched the special teams practice from Saturday from the spring game, and we practiced punt 14 times, and Saturday being the 15th, where we go out there and execute it in front of everybody at the spring game. And I mean, we had countless mistakes and misalignments and blocking the wrong guy, and same on all special teams. So we had some guys playing some different positions because we had split the team, but I'd hope they'd have a little better handle on that and understand the grand scheme of what we're trying to accomplish a little bit better. But it's clear that we don't, and that takes some time. It'll take more time this fall. So. As I said, some guys got better and really, I think are really starting to understand their position, and other guys are going to need some more time.
Sal, go ahead.
Coach, when you heading into the preseason, I know it's months away, but do you see Shore and Santiago competing for that top spot, or do you think a Kaufman or incoming freshman can get in the mix? Or
I think those two guys have got themselves up at the top. Shore and Santiago, I think those two guys are probably going to be battling for the starting position to at least start camp. I don't know enough about any of the freshmen to say, and it'd be pure speculation. We'll see when they get here, and that's always the big question on all the freshmen is who's going to play, who's going to be the best players in the class, and I don't know. We'll find out when they get here. I'm hoping that one of the freshman quarterbacks will at least be able to be a travel guy and maybe be a guy that could take some snaps if something happened with the other two. Matt had a really good game on Saturday, but there's just some things that I think the other two are a lot better at and stand out. He's a smart kid, and he plays with a lot of effort. Understands the offense. He's a coach's kid. I really like having guys like him around. He's a good team player, and as I said, we'll see how it all shakes out in the fall.
coming into spring, was there a position that you were not sure about? Then when spring finished, that you were a little bit more confident about what you had there?
I don't know. I don't know if I went into the spring with any expectations about what we'd have at any position. I'm disappointed that guys like Baggett and Maples and those kinds of guys that have played quite a bit weren't able to be out there and weren't able to practice. We had we got limited reps out of Mendenhall. We got limited reps out of Carnegie. Lofi Tamsese was sitting out the whole spring with surgery, and we would love to have had a chance to evaluate him and see what he can do. And there's other guys. There's several guys that had the red jersey on all spring that it would have been nice to have had a chance to evaluate those guys.
Do you where do you see the offensive line's development? I know you moved Matt to center. How about the other guys on that top line? How did they progress during the spring?
I think those guys improved, and it was interesting to go through the spring and realize that we do teach a lot of things differently than they had been taught in the past, and fundamentally, just some of the coaching points, some of the techniques we teach are a little different. So that took some time for those guys to learn, and they haven't. It's not that they've learned them all or mastered any of them yet, but they improved. I was really pleased with Justin Gilbert and just his athleticism. He's worked to gain some weight. He needs to gain a lot more. He knows that. We've talked about that. Drew Hennessy the same way. He really tough, competitive kid. Has gained 13 pounds since we've been here, and we lost him for a little bit there the third week of spring practice. But I thought he improved. Moving Matt from guard to center, I think, was a good move, and hopefully he's going to come around with those snaps, and we'll get that all cleaned up. He gives us the best chance right now with the guys we've got to snap the ball and get a little bit of movement on the nose. And we had the center covered most of the spring practice, so it was really good work for him and tested him. Todd McDonald, who backed him up this spring, really showed some toughness. He was hurt early in camp and didn't take any reps, but was really studying. And I think the thing that impressed Brent Davis, our offensive coordinator, was the fact he was able to step right in there. He knew all the calls, he knew all the assignments, and that was good to see. So a lot of those guys were nicked up and dinged up and didn't make it all the way through spring. We're limited. We'll get a better idea this fall, and that's a position where we're either going to have to get some guys to really change and play a lot better and play more physical, or we're going to have to keep our fingers crossed that we got a freshman or two that can play. And that's just to provide us some depth.
At this time, we'll open up those on the teleconference. If you've got a question for Coach Monken, please identify yourself and your organization.
This is Charles Grievous with GoBlackKnights.com. Good afternoon, Coach. Now that spring practice has concluded, what would you say are your team's strengths at this point?
I think our team came together and have played together better than they probably would have at the onset in January. I think those guys we were going through the workouts and naturally they're just trying to find their place and survive and find their way into the depth chart so they can get a chance to compete. And I really think our guys did a good job of starting to hold each other accountable and push each other and set some expectations for themselves and for each other. And we're open to verbalizing that to each other, and that's a good step in providing that leadership. In terms of us physically or what we've done this spring offensively or defensively in the kicking game, as I said, I'm glad we don't have to play this week. We wouldn't be ready, and we're not ready. We got a long way to go. So I'm not ready to anoint anybody or any part of our team that I feel like we've got a strength or that's something we can really count on. We need improvements in every area, including coaching. I got to do a better job, and the special teams is something I'm very heavy-handed in, and as I watched that film on Saturday and with the number of missed assignments and guys not aligned right, that's clearly a poor job on my part, not getting those guys prepared. So I've got to self-evaluate and improve. We all do, and hopefully we will.
Great. Coach, my final question actually comes from one of the Army fans and subscribers to GoBlackKnights.com, username Goodnight65. And his question is this. Last season at Georgia Southern, you used two different quarterbacks, McKinnon and Ellison, each starting about half the games. Do you foresee that possibility of a similar situation this season at Army, or is your preference really to kind of have one of these guys lock down the starting job?
Well, Jarrett McKinnon was our starting quarterback last year at Georgia Southern when we started the year, and probably unbeknownst to most people that follow Army football, they didn't follow Georgia Southern football. We had a rash of injuries, and for those that follow Georgia Southern football, it was they had their eyes on it pretty good. We lost. We were down to our fifth string running back, so it was play your fifth string B back or put Jarrett McKinnon, who was maybe our best offensive football player, in at B-back, and that's what we did. And so that's how Kevin Ellison ended up kind of being a starter at quarterback, is because we were having to use Jarek as a running back. I don't know that that's ideal, having two different guys that are trotting in and out of there and starting one week and not starting the other. We'd really like to settle into one guy, and I think that helps our team and gives the guy that's playing that position and our team some confidence, and it helps our coaches call plays. I think we realize that each guy has his own set of strengths, and to be able to call plays with the quarterback we've got in there and make adjustments with him certainly makes it a lot easier. But we'll do whatever we have to do to try to win the football game. If that means playing two guys or three guys or however many, we'll do whatever we need to win the game.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach, this is Ken Kreitzer, Sons of the American Legion Radio. About the move of Matt Hugenberg to center, I notice he comes in the scorecard 6'3", 285 pounds. Is that a move to try to bring more size to your offensive line?
Well, he must have been carrying some sandbags when they weighed him, because I don't know if we got anybody who weighs 285. But he is a bigger guy, and he frankly was doing a pretty good job of getting some movement at the point of attack when he had to go up against another body. Obviously, we get a chance to see these guys do a lot of different things in practice, not just a scrimmage situation, but in board drills and that kind of thing. And just felt like he was going to give us a chance to snap the ball and be good up the middle, and so that was the reason for the move. We just felt like he could help us get some movement when the nose was covered better than we had been getting, and so that's why we made the move.
And Coach, on defense, probably have the least depth at linebacker of the different areas. Do you see players that you have now that'll fit in? And I wondered if you could just give an update on the status of Julian Holloway coming off his injury last year.
Well, Julian he sat out the whole spring, and we've been trying to rehabilitate the injury. There still is a possibility that he may need surgery to get him where he needs to be at full health. Obviously, that's the last resort. We don't want to make a habit of going in and just cutting guys open and seeing if we can get it fixed before we can do that in our training room. But we've got hopes that he'll be a player for us. We've got nothing to really go on other than the film that we can see over the course of the time he's been here. But we're anxious to get him healthy and get him out there and see if he can be a guy for us.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
Anything else for those on the telephone? All right, we'll come back here. Randall Hall one time. Ron, go ahead.
Coach, you said that you're instituting a new system. Obviously, you're a new coach, and the current guys would have maybe trouble adjusting. Does that give some freshmen maybe a little bit of an edge because they're coming in with a blank slate?
I don't know if that necessarily gives them an edge. Every place I've coached and every season I've coached, there's been freshmen that have come in and played. and it didn't matter how long we'd been there as a staff or the system and how long it had been in place. There are just some guys, physically and athletically, they're going to be able to come in and contribute, and there's other guys that won't. And it probably has more to do with them physically and athletically having the ability to be able to do that more so than the mental part of it. Most kids can learn. Most kids, if you take the time, and particularly with the freshmen, if you know there's a guy that's going to be able to contribute, you take more individual time with that guy, and you try to get him to learn his position and learn his role, and that's usually what a freshman can be, as a role player. Doesn't mean he can't start, but those guys get a little bit of a head start. I should say our veterans get a little bit of a head start on these freshmen each spring, but it's usually fairly easy for those guys once we get through camp and we start getting into the first week of game preparation. If they're a freshman and they're going to be in the mix, for them to pick it up and kind of get in the groove. And I worry less about them learning than I do being ready physically. So I don't know that the mental part for these guys is necessarily going to be an edge, that our guys don't quite know the system as well, so that'll give a freshman an opportunity. I think it's more about the physical part right now.
Did the problem with fundamentals surprise you?
No, it's not necessarily a surprise. Or everybody's got their way to teach the things that they want to get done, and I'm not saying that what they've been taught in the past was wrong. It's just not the way that we teach it. So if you go to another option school, they might be teaching fundamentals completely differently than we're teaching them. I know, there's just a handful of schools that run our offense, but I know that if you went to Air Force or Georgia Tech or to Navy or and here, and you listen to the coaching points of the different position coaches, not all of them are going to be exactly the same. There's going to be some things that one coach emphasizes more than another, or one offensive coordinator has a philosophy to stress one thing more than another, and it's just our way to do it. It doesn't make the way they're doing it wrong. It makes it different. So the learning curve becomes bigger.
Rich in the back.
Marco, Army Radio Network. Question, from now until the beginning of summer camp, how close tabs are you going to be able to keep on your players, and what's their plan roughly around their training and their studies going to look like between now and the beginning of summer camp?
The unique experience here at the Academy is, as those of us that are here know, our guys don't just take summer school classes and work out. They also are obligated to go through summer training, and that's each summer that they're here. Our guys will do that as well, as they have every summer. The one thing we're hopeful is that most of those guys will be able to do that summer training early in the summer, not in the middle or later in the summer, closer to preseason camp. We'd like to get them to have an opportunity to do that training early, and then come back and, like a traditional college, take summer school classes, work out here with our strength staff. But the nature of the United States Military Academy allows us to be able to keep a pretty good tab on each one of those guys. We know where they are. We know what they're doing every day, and there's somebody here at the institution that's tracking that, and so that helps us. I think just to be able to monitor those guys and what they're eating and how much rest they're getting and those kinds of things. And those are areas where there's been a lot of conversations and talk about, giving our guys the best opportunity to succeed once they get back here in August, to have a good camp, to be healthy and rested and ready to go physically. So we'll be working with those guys throughout the summer in the permissible weeks that we're allowed. We get a certain number of weeks that we can work with those guys, and other weeks where it's time that they can the availability for them to work out and lift is there. It's just not monitored by the coaches. We're going to spend as much time as we're permitted by NCAA rule with our guys to try to develop and get them ready for the season, just as every other team in America is. That obviously gives us the best chance. If we don't do those things and don't get that time, then we're putting ourselves at a disadvantage.
And Coach, we talked about the players, how they've looked through camp. How do you think your coaching staff did? I'm sure there's a learning curve for them, with you as the head coach. How do you think they did through this spring season?
I was really happy with the enthusiasm and the effort. Our staff's fully invested in getting this thing turned around and getting it going. And we've got a veteran staff. I think a great bunch of men and men who are really good football coaches. They care about our guys and want to see them succeed, push them to be their best, and we don't feel like our pushing them and our driving them to succeed and to win and to be their very best on the football field takes away from the other things they do here. We feel like that enhances their performance in other areas. We're holding them accountable to be the best that they can be, just as they're held accountable to be the best they can be as students in their military obligations. So I think our coaches have really embraced the philosophy here, and I did my best to try to hire coaches that I thought would be good fits for Army football, and I'm very pleased with the job they've done. And as I said, the expectation for excellence, the expectation for getting everything right and doing our best doesn't just fall on the players. It's the responsibility of the coaches. And when there are mistakes and our players don't perform as well as they're capable of, it's our job as coaches to get them to do that. And our coaches understand that. They know that I have an expectation for them as assistant coaches. I put a lot of pressure on myself to get it right, and it trickles right down to the players. And I think everybody recognizes that there's an expectation, and our coaches are, they work really hard. Our support staff is great. We got a great staff in the office that handle everything from training room, weight room, film, recruiting, day-to-day operations, all of it. And everybody's working hard and everybody's invested.
Thanks, Coach.
One last thing, Coach, along the lines of what we were just discussing. Do you or your staff, are you allowed to give out any homework? Did they take their playbooks with them when they went back to spring practice is over? I know you said some of them should need to gain weight. Do they have a plan now with what they should be eating or how they should be eating to gain that weight by August? How much do they walk away from spring practice with in their heads and under their arms?
Well, the playbooks are available to those guys. The playbooks are theirs, so they've got all their notes from the spring. Technology allows us to be able to send film to them on their iPads and their computers that they can watch. We can either text over the top of it or voice over the top of plays where they can be watching a play and they can hear the coach's voice and making corrections. We're also permitted by NCAA rule to meet for 2 hours per week with our guys and watch film. So this week our guys will be able to come in and we'll be able to watch the spring game and make corrections and talk X's and O's. We're permitted to do that on all the weeks where it, as I said, NCAA permits a certain number of weeks in the off season where we can do that, and so we take advantage of that. So it never ends. It shouldn't. It can't. Those guys get away from it, and like everything else, they put it on the back burner, and we don't want that to happen. We want them to continuously be thinking about football and about their position and fundamentals and how to get better, and so that's something we'll continue to do throughout the summer as well as we're permitted.
Any other questions? All right, thanks everybody. Well, Army opens the season on September 6th here at Michie Stadium versus Buffalo.